Ubisoft has announced that studio closures are coming. They've said the Prince of Persia remake is cancelled, and my question is, what happens to Ubisoft Germany? Those folks making strategy games, those popular Anno city builders, are they in line for the chopping block? Let's talk about this. Now, there's been plenty of news going on for a year plus now that the owners of Ubisoft were planning to split the company and keep it safe within the ownership of the family, the Guillermo family. So far, it's happened at a snail's pace of them just setting up Vantage Studios with Tencent as a major investor and deflecting any threat of a hostile takeover of the company. Ubisoft just recently provided an update on this restructuring and have warned of incoming studio closures and right sizing, which is just a nicer way of saying a horrible thing, which is layoffs. The main announcement focuses on restructuring Ubisoft into these creative houses, 5 creative houses. Each of them will be responsible for a set of IPs and will focus on specific genre of games. The 5 creative houses include Vantage Studios, as I said, which has Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and Rainbow Six, the core and biggest franchises for Ubisoft. I'll quickly run through this. Creative House 2 will focus on competitive shooters with IPs like The Division, Ghost Recon and Splinter Cell. Creative House 3 is focused on live service game like For Honor, The Crew, Riders Republic, Brawlhalla and their quadruple A game Skull and Bones. Creative House 5, and I'll get to 4 after this, 5 will focus on family-friendly games like Just Dance, Idle Miner Tycoon, Hasbro games and such. Creative House 4 is where I'm interested in. It is supposed to focus on fantasy and narrative-driven experiences, such as the Might and Magic series, which includes Heroes of Might and Magic, the Anno series, Rayman, Prince of Persia, and Beyond Good and Evil, if you even believe that franchise is being worked on. I don't think so. It's interesting they are calling these creative houses and not studios. These creative houses are possibly a group of studios. Ubisoft Germany, the creators of Anno, is possibly one of them, but that doesn't discount there not being any layoffs at their studios, as they announced Massive Entertainment, the folks that worked on the Division franchise. Previously, they made the brilliant World in Conflict back in their Activision days. How I wish they made a World in Conflict too. But Massive will undergo some right sizing or layoffs. So Ubisoft Germany is not safe, even though I don't think they will outright close their entire operation. I don't think they will be so clueless as to close down the studios working on a quite well-received series that is profitable. Not Assassin's Creed level of profits, sure, but profitable nevertheless. It's also interesting to note that leadership will be somewhat independent for each creative house. Each will be led by industry leaders within the genre of that creative house and will have some autonomy in terms of managing the IPs and game development within that creative house. It makes sense when it comes to a corporation the size of Ubisoft. Ubisoft Germany, which is actually 3 studios, Mainz, Berlin and Dusseldorf, have been somewhat independent under the banner of Ubisoft Blue Byte. Now, Blue Byte was the company that developed the Settlers and Anno series before being bought out by Ubisoft. But they have been operating relatively independent, almost like a subsidiary that big brother Ubisoft doesn't really meddle with. But now I suppose they will. They will probably have a bigger say on things. Ubisoft Germany might lose some of that independence if they have to report to a new leadership structure. That's bound to cause a problem or two in this restructuring phase of Ubisoft. I can see them consolidating to a studio or two and reusing the games that is under their studio that is being developed to focus on just the Anno series. The one that makes money. Well, the Settlers have been a bit of a disaster for quite a while. They've not managed to make one that fans like, and the sales are evidence of that. Other projects like Champions of Antaria, well, I doubt you even remember that game. Yeah, those games didn't do that well. I just don't see Ubisoft being a big player in the strategy games genre. I mean, they've not been in years. I mean, gone are the days they would do a Tom Clancy End War or even Ruse. Ubisoft is highly unlikely to make an RTS because it's going to double down on what it knows best, what brings money for them. For their German studios, whenever they tried doing something new, it has failed to gain much traction. And you know, the funny thing about all creative work, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it leads to burnout. Ubisoft is a game making machine, and I expect there to be high turnover in studios where they focus on one core franchise and keep making what makes money for them. I hope they don't just do that. I mean, despite their poor attempts at refreshing or reviving the Settlers and doing different type of strategy games, I'd still like to see them try out new things, try out new types of strategy games and what they have in store, rather than just focusing on Anno. I would like to see them explore strategy games beyond Anno. But then there is that small little development of a certain Heroes of Might and Magic game, Olden Era, that is being developed externally by Unfrozen Studios, and Hooded Horse is helping them publish it. We don't know the fate of that project. It is possible with a change of leadership and stuff, it may get delayed. If Olden Era actually sells really well, we might still have hope that Ubisoft, or rather Creative House 4, considers to make strategy game titles that are based on their classic franchises. Ubisoft will follow where the money is. Also, what happens with March of Giants, which is this online MOBA RTS hybrid thingy. They bought the studio and the IP from Amazon, who are actually divesting from game development. Ubisoft hasn't announced where they will fit in the Creative House structure yet, but March of Giants is indeed a live service game, so it's still within the Ubisoft plan of focusing on games as a service. So Ubisoft is not entirely exiting from new strategy games, I suppose, to be fair, but I think they would be more cautious, more wary about stuff they aren't familiar with. There were a bunch of games cancelled as well, but I personally don't think anything was rather noteworthy, as a lot of those were unannounced, except for Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, which was announced back in 2020. Yeah, that's been stuck in development hell for quite a while. Anyway, I do wish the studios affected a smooth transition and that the layoffs would be minimized, although I have absolutely no faith in big corpos like Ubisoft, you know, because layoffs do happen. That's the easiest thing for them to do. That's just how things go with them. But there is already some pushback against these plans from their staff, especially in Europe, which has tougher labor laws, and with staff forming unions, this could drag on a bit. Who knows what would happen if their studios do go on strike? Well, we do. Games will ultimately be delayed. But we are talking about the livelihood of people here, and they will expect some fair amount of support, severance pay and compensation. It's definitely going to cost Ubisoft, at least in Europe. Anyway, with Ubisoft restructuring and rethinking how they handle the games under their stable and stuff, you know, if US Guillermo came up to you, or anyone from Ubisoft were to come to you and say, hey, if you were given a chance to pick one Ubisoft old classic, an old game to be brought back today, a modern rethink or remake of an old Ubisoft game, or maybe even a sequel, whatever it may be, what Ubisoft game do you want them to make? Tell me in the comments below. I mean, I personally would love to see Ruse 2, you know, that game, that really cool, innovative RTS game from Eugen System, who went on to make War Game and stuff, where you can bluff your opponents. And I think for most people, or rather not most people, but a lot of people, they probably would say Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. It's no game, a fantasy first person game like that game. And that would be a great title to bring back in the modern era. Anyway, tell me in the comments below, share your thoughts. Thanks for watching and farewell, friends.